So, good morning. My name is Father Howard Giles at Jesus the Good Shepherd Anglican Church in Henderson, Nevada. I have Joanne Trent with me. It is Saturday, June the 22nd of 2019, and we have so many people in our church family life that have gone on, and we haven't been able to record their stories. And Joanne has lots of stories of her own that I would like to know, but some stories I think that have been lost are about Father George and Judy Gerard, and we haven't recorded enough of those. And of all the people that I know, I think maybe you knew them the earliest.
I knew them. I met Father George and Judy. He was a seminarian when I met him.
Okay.
And I was 17. I met him up at Galilee.
Uh-huh.
I was there for the summer, or there for a Midler camp.
So Camp Galilee
Yes,
at
Camp
Lake
Galilee.
Tahoe. Yeah.
And Father George, who's now George and Judy were there spending the summer from between classes at seminary.
Okay, so he was already at CDSP
He was at
in
CDSP.
Berkeley, and so they'd come up for the summer to Galilee.
It was their summer home because when George went in, George studied his first year under his priest in Reno, and then the second and third year, he sold everything. They sold everything. They had two little kids, and they sold everything. And Judy did the cooking for the single men at the seminary, and of course George helped her a lot. And they lived in a teeny, teeny, tiny little apartment
Yes.
with their cat, their dog, and their two kids. And occasionally I would go down and visit them.
So that's great. So I mean, and CDSP was much smaller than, because this would be what year about, do you think?
Oh, let's see. I graduated in 55, so this has been about 53 or so in
Okay.
there.
So you're still in high school.
I was in high school, yes.
Okay, and he had been living in Reno, and he was a pharmacist.
He was a pharmacist, yes. Met Judy in Reno and married her, I think, after 2 weeks.
Wow.
He advised people to take a long time, but he said, he loved Judy.
Oh yeah.
All his heart, all
Oh,
his
yeah.
whole life.
And they had maybe this isn't so much part of the story, but they had a practice in the Episcopal Church at that time that they used to call the old man canons. If you were an older man that was already married with children, that had a career, they would kind of fast track you a little bit, like you're saying that they did for him. So they only required 2 years of him actually being on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And that Gibbs Hall had you're right, those tiny little rooms downstairs. And so, yeah, she did the cooking and shopping.
It was a wonderful time, and this was so characteristic of them because they made this welcome area, and the seminarians would come down there, and also the professors. They'd come down and have coffee. Judy and George, they would have coffee and some cookies or whatever, and people could come down there and have just kind of as a place to talk and visit, and Judy's Grace was there all the time, where this place for people to come. It was a wonderful thing.
The ministry of hospitality.
Absolutely, they were some of the most gracious people I've ever known.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is that what struck you when you? I mean, because there were other clergy and people around at Galilee that you could have kind of connected with, but you connected with them. Was that it?
I was just a 17-year-old kid, and they just kind of adopted me, and they had these two little kids, adorable little kids,
Yeah.
Glenna and Eric, and they just kind of took me along with them, and they were remarkable, very remarkable people. Judy, her grace was just incredible, and George was so real. He was one of the most real people I ever knew, and it struck me his simple, sincere love of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He fell in love with Jesus. He said when he read the Gospel of John, he was an atheist before that. He was raised by atheist parents, Jewish parents, that they didn't even do their own religion in New York City. They just were atheists. And when George read the gospel, Father Ledger gave him the Bible to read, and he fell in love with Jesus. And right away, he went into hospitals and prayed for people because that's what Jesus said to do. And they were just remarkable people. And I was so lucky to have known him.
So, I mean, you say that he was real, and so I think that's one great example that his love for Jesus was real.
It was real.
And he was able to express it, and just that natural.
Oh yes, it just sort of, and he never pontificated about anything. He never got it. I never ever saw him get into intellectual discussions, which I loved. I loved Galilee for that reason, because these people with these wonderful minds and educations would talk about everything. But George was just George, and he he would, if you ask him a question, he would tell you. He would tell you the simple reality that he knew, and he was certainly capable of discussing things. He was an educated man, but he just didn't. He didn't get into what I used to call churchianity at all. He was a person who was convicted in the heart by the Word of God, not by the word of man, and then joined this fellowship, this group, and then became a priest so he could bring Jesus to other people.
Mm-hmm. So you went and you visited them in Berkeley, and you spent some time there. I mean, you ended up living there for a while, or
I did later after they left.
Oh, okay, after they left.
They were in Winnemucca when. No, maybe they had already gone to South America. Don't remember, but
okay.
When George was ordained, they were sent to Winnemucca.
Okay.
And when I was in college in Reno, so I would go down and visit them sometimes there too.
And so your time in Berkeley then was you were just going and staying for like a weekend or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You were and you were in high school here in Las Vegas.
Well, that's right. And my time. I had graduated. I was a first year in college he was a senior at CDSP when I went down and visited them. Okay,
so you had graduated from high school here, then you'd gone up to Reno to go to school.
Yes.
And so then, like on a weekend or something, you would go and
on
visit?
a weekend. Occasionally, I would get on the bus and go down to Berkeley and stay with them in their teeny tiny little apartment. And Judy and I, in those days, it was wonderful to go to the city. We wore gloves. That was the day when ladies wore gloves. And we would dress up and go to the city.
Mm-hmm. So San Francisco.
Yes, to San Francisco.
Yeah. How would you take the bus to San Francisco, or how did you get there?
Yes, that's how I traveled all the time, by bus in those days.
Yeah.
Just get on the bus and go down and visit George and Judy. It wasn't Father then.
Yeah.
It was George and Judy.
Yeah.
But
I mean, then to get into San Francisco, did you all take the bus into San Francisco, or did you take the boat?
No, we took the bus.
Okay.
We would go
over the bridge.
Or did we drive? Maybe Judy drove. When I went with Judy into San Francisco.
Yeah.
Because from Berkeley, San Francisco just across the bridge.
Yeah.
So we might. I don't remember that part.
You don't remember how you got there. It's just a little detail that I'm interested in. That other people probably aren't as interested in. So you all would just go shopping, just to spend a day shopping together, and just.
I just go and enjoy the city and have lunch and come home.
Mm-hmm.
But and that probably was a treat for Judy too, because
Of course, she was working hard. I mean.
Oh yes, she worked hard. Yes.
I mean, that's hard work. Not only, I mean, like you say, she had 2 small children, and she's got a husband, but then she's got all these seminarians to feed and to kind of make house for, right? Because she's doing all this hospitality for them.
Right.
That's a lot of.
They worked hard. It was hard work. But Judy used to make it look like it was nothing. One of my earliest memories of her is carrying a big a basket full of clothes, sheets, at Galilee doing the laundry. She carried a big basket of sheets, but she carried it like just so graceful, like a queen, and she walked like a queen, sort of.
Yeah.
And her graciousness and George's simple sincerity and honesty just drew me in.
Yeah. Very good. So you're in Reno going to school, and you visit them in Berkeley, and then when he first gets ordained, he's at Winnemucca, and you went and visited them.
Yes,
in Winnemucca
I would go
as
down
well.
one occasionally and spend a weekend in with them in Winnemucca, because I was working and putting myself through school, and I didn't do the things regularly you think college kids did, because I didn't have the money, and nor did I have the time.
Yeah.
And besides, I was really interested in I was interested in finding out more about God. I really wanted to know how to solve our problems, the world's problems, my family's problems,
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
I was interested and I was drawn to people that had something like that sincerity that George had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They were living life beautifully.
Yes, they were.
And when he gets to Winnemucca, that's really when the miracles start to happen through his ministry, right? So many stories of healing.
Oh yes, yes, because and he would never talk about it unless it was something that had to be explained. But when I went to Winnemucca years later, I went up there and taught, and people would say, "Oh, you know Father George? Let me tell you what happened to me." And they would tell me these stories, like a man told me that his wife was having a baby, and she was not delivering. The baby was stuck, and so the husband ran over to the church and got George. It was at night, and got him to come up there and pray. And so Father George went into the delivery with the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and he prayed, and the baby came, and the doctor was a Jewish man who became a Christian because of it, and the husband said, "I didn't know angels were so big." He said there was angels standing by Father George, while he prayed.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were so big, but Father George didn't know anything about the angels. He was just praying.
And that's a story that I've heard, multiple times from multiple people, is about when he prays, people sing angels.
Oh yes, yes. Yes. It was a conscious. When I had Kathleen, she was a baby, and I was living. I had the opportunity to stay in California and marry a really nice guy. But I said, no, I'm going to go home because Father George and Judy were here, and I wanted to be there. I figured I'd learn more about God if I did that, and I really needed to know.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the conscious decision to come to be where Father George and Judy were.
So moving back to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I've had a lot to. I came back. Right. It had a lot to do with me coming back.
Yeah.
Also, my mother had her illness
Mm-hmm.
had affected me. But anyway, I just found myself deciding, and a kind of an off the cuff thing, to be where George and Judy were, because I'd learned what I needed to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I think I did, because it was through Father George and that church filled with the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had the experience. I went from being a paper believer, in other words, wanting, well, I just became aware really deeply and personally of how real God is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was largely through their ministry.
And decisions that you made, you were seeing them have a relationship with Jesus and said,
Yes, I did.
I want to have a relationship like that. And you made decisions to
Well, yes.
to put yourself in proximity, as they say, to put yourself close to people who were doing
yes,
that.
Exactly right. They were the people that weren't just discussing God, they were living
According to the Lord's will and ways.
And Father George would go and I met someone who was healed of cancer, and but I never heard, I didn't hear it from George. I heard it from somebody else.
Yeah, that's right. You'd hear it from the other people. Maybe we'll have another time. We'll do another little sit down like this, and maybe talk about the miracles or the time at St. Timothy's, or a little bit more about Winnemucca or something. That early time in Berkeley is just because I was at CDSP so many years later, and so that's part of the interest, and just because he's the priest that baptized me, and so you like to know about the people in your family, in your church family. But those are wonderful stories, and hopefully we can sit down again and tell some more. Does that sound good? Thank you so much, Joanne.
Oh.